Welcome everyone to today's story, an unbelievable tale of betrayal and revenge. In this video, we'll dive deep into the life of a man whose world was turned upside down by his wife's deceit. But instead of giving in to anger, he crafted a plan to confront her. What would you do if faced with such a revelation? Stick with me as we unravel this gripping story and together explore the choices made and the consequences that followed. I've been married to my wife for 4 years, and while that might not seem like a long time, our relationship feels like it has a strong foundation. We dated for 2 years before getting married, so I thought I knew her well. At 30, I felt secure in our relationship, thinking we had built something real. My wife, who's 26, seemed equally committed. But things took a turn that changed everything, and it all started on July 4th during a party her friend was hosting. A week before the party, my wife casually mentioned the upcoming event. Normally, we plan for a babysitter ahead of time when we have plans, especially since we have a 3-year-old. This time, however, she told me the babysitter was unavailable and that I should stay home while she went to the party. At first, I wasn't thrilled about it, because our time together had already become scarce since our baby was born. But she seemed excited, and I didn't want to be the one to hold her back from having fun, so I agreed. Now here's the thing. I'm not a big fan of her friend. She's younger, a bit reckless, and has always given me the vibe of being a bad influence. She's only 23, and while I try not to judge, it's hard to ignore how she seems to push boundaries in a way that makes me uncomfortable. Despite these feelings, I kept my opinions to myself. I didn't want to come across as controlling, so I told my wife to enjoy herself. Still, I had a nagging feeling I couldn't shake. On the morning of July 4th, that feeling only grew stronger. I decided to take matters into my own hands and called the babysitter myself. I figured I could offer her a higher rate to see if she could change her plans and help us out. When I reached her, she was surprised. Not because I was offering her more money, but because she hadn't even been asked about that date. My wife had lied to me. Red flag number 1. Feeling uneasy, I arranged for the babysitter to come over at 10 p.m., giving me time to surprise my wife at the party. As the day went on, I noticed she seemed especially animated. She was more excited than I'd seen her in a long time, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just looking forward to spending time with her friends. But the closer it got to the party, the more dressed up she became. I mean, she looked stunning, more glamorous than I'd seen her in months. That didn't sit right with me. She left for the party around 8 p.m., and I waited for the babysitter to arrive. Once she got to the house, I headed to the party myself. When I pulled up, the place was buzzing with energy. Music was blasting, people were laughing, and it was clear everyone was having a good time. I walked in and was greeted by her friend, who looked surprised to see me. She called my wife over, and the moment my wife saw me, her whole demeanor shifted. She was shocked, to say the least, and her eyes, glassy from drinking, gave away that she was more than just tipsy. The first thing out of her mouth wasn't excitement to see me, but rather a bunch of questions. "Why are you here? Who's with the baby?" she asked, looking more annoyed than anything. I reassured her that I had everything under control with the babysitter and that I just wanted to surprise her and enjoy the night together. She seemed uneasy, almost on edge, but didn't say much. We both tried to brush past the awkwardness, but something was off. The party itself wasn't massive, probably about 15 to 20 people packed into a medium-sized house. But one thing stood out to me immediately. There were way more guys than girls, almost a 2-to-1 ratio. That struck me as odd, but I didn't let it bother me too much at first. I just wanted to have a good time with my wife and celebrate the holiday together. As the night went on, I noticed my wife was acting weird. She kept looking around nervously, and her interactions with people seemed tense. At one point, I overheard some of the guys talking about getting back to playing Truth or Dare, which sounded like the main event of the evening. That's when things started to click for me. I joined a group of guys who seemed friendly and started chatting, trying to catch up on what had happened before I got there. I ended up talking to one guy who seemed particularly outgoing. We struck up a conversation about the party, and after some casual small talk, I told him I was thinking about making a move on one of the girls there. I wanted to test the waters without revealing too much, so I pointed out different girls and asked him who was available. When I finally pointed to my wife, not telling him who she was, he told me she was taken. According to him, she had shown up with a guy he knew pretty well. Now, with this new information, everything started to make sense. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. The guy kept talking, giving me more details about this affair partner of hers. Apparently, he had been bragging to his friends about hooking up with her. This wasn't just a one-time thing. It was ongoing, and it made me sick to my stomach. At some point, her friend came over, realizing that I was starting to put the pieces together. But by then, it was too late. I knew. I decided to confront the situation head-on. I asked her friend where my wife was, and she suggested I check the patio. Sure enough, that's where I found her, talking to the guy she'd been cheating on me with. They looked like they were either having a heated conversation or she was trying to convince him of something. I walked right up to them and introduced myself to the guy. Before I could say anything else, my wife grabbed my arm and tried to pull me away, insisting that we leave. I shook her off, my anger building. I told her she could leave if she wanted, but I was going to have a talk with this guy. I turned to him and asked point blank if he knew my wife was married before getting involved with her. He hesitated, glancing at my wife for help, but I wasn't in the mood to let him off the hook. I repeated the question, making it clear I wasn't looking to start a fight. I just wanted the truth. To his credit, he didn't try to lie. He apologized, saying he didn't know she was married when they first started talking. My wife, meanwhile, was getting more anxious, trying to defuse the situation, but I wasn't having it. I asked him how long they had been involved and how many times they had hooked up. He gave me a number, and that was enough for me. I wished him a good night and walked away. I left the party, got in my car, and drove home. When my wife eventually came back, I told her I wanted a divorce. There was no coming back from this. I packed a bag and checked into a hotel, where I'm writing this story down. I don't know what to do next. This is my first experience with divorce, and I have no idea how to navigate co-parenting. The whole thing makes me feel physically ill. Over the past few days, the reality of what happened has only hit harder. The anger, sadness, and betrayal come in waves. Little things that once seemed insignificant now scream at me. The late-night texts she used to get, the trips out of town, the extra effort she put into her appearance for girls' nights. All of it was a lie. I've already started the divorce process, and I'm looking into custody arrangements. The thought of co-parenting with someone who betrayed me so deeply is daunting. How am I supposed to split time with our child when I can't even look at her without feeling sick? How do we handle birthdays, holidays, and everything in between? I don't have all the answers right now. What I do know is that I need to rebuild my life, not just for myself, but for my child. This journey is just beginning, and it's filled with uncertainty. But I'll figure it out, one step at a time. That's all for this video. That was an incredible story. What would you do in his situation? Have you or someone you know faced a similar journey of trust and betrayal? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support really means a lot.